Welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you?
How tough am I? How tough am I? I had a bowl of for breakfast this morning.
Yes, so?
With
Right this way. Sorry to keep you waiting. Welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you?
How tough am I?
wow.
Hello everyone, it's Mr. E here, and today, if you're a Mr. E head, you are in for quite a treat, because I anticipate this to be a much longer video than my normal 30-minute ones. What we're going to be going over today is everything to do with toughness. Toughness is just such an important, pivotal part of the current defensive metagame. It is the absolute best way to not take damage and to survive missions, and so I figured I would give it a really thorough breakdown. This is going to be divided into two parts. The first part is going to be going over exactly what benefits toughness provides, as well as breaking down all the terminology like toughness replenishment, toughness regeneration, toughness damage reduction, all of those things. So that will be the first part, and then the second part is going to be looking at each individual perk and blessing, as well as class talents that affect our toughness, whether it's regeneration of toughness, percent increase, etc., all the abilities that grant toughness, and I'm going to be rating those on an F through S scale. That way, when you go to make your own builds, which I hope all of you end up doing at some point, you can have a better appreciation for which of these nodes that you definitely want to include in builds and which of them you should be passing over, because there are some that are absolutely like noob traps, and there are some that are kind of like hidden OP. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Before I start though, if you could just check and make certain that you are subscribed. If you are not, I would greatly appreciate a subscription. Videos like this take me a long time to put together, to edit, to formulate, and I'd love to get feedback in the comments, by likes, by subscriptions. That lets me know this is the right track for the channel, and I really appreciate everyone that watches. Okay, now let's get into it for real. Okay, so the first question is, what is toughness? As you can see, toughness is the blue bar over the top of my health in the bottom left corner, and it protects me from damage, both ranged and melee. However, this damage is calculated in two different ways depending on whether it's ranged damage or melee damage. When you're attacked by a ranged enemy, if you have enough toughness to block the attack, it will do so fully. You won't take any damage to your health. However, if you don't have enough toughness left to block the full damage of the range attack, it will bleed over into your health. Let's compare that to taking melee damage. When you're on full toughness and you take melee damage, you take 0 damage to your health. However, when you aren't on full toughness, the damage that you take from a melee attack is proportional to the percentage of missing toughness that you have. So currently I'm missing looks like about 26% or so of this of my toughness. So I should take about 26% of this attack's damage to my health directly. And we can see I took a very small amount there. Therefore, if I keep getting attacked, I'll take more and more health damage until when I'm fully out of toughness, I'll take the full damage directly to my health, as you can see there. So, the goals for ranged characters and toughness are very different than the goals for characters who are playing primarily in melee. If you're a character who's playing at range, like the Veteran or the Psyker, your goal is primarily to sustain enough toughness that any ranged attacks that hit you won't be able to break your toughness. You just need to maintain some toughness to protect you from those ranged attacks. For melee classes like Ogryn and Zealot, your goal is to keep your toughness at 100% or above, which we can address how some abilities do that, in order to protect yourself from that bleed through from enemy attacks, which is much, much harder in general. Okay, so now we need to talk about some terminology that's related to toughness, and a lot of these kind of blur together, so I'm going to do my best to make them distinct for you. The first one I want to talk about is toughness replenishment, and that just means gaining back toughness. Usually it's on kill or on hit. So for instance, the Ogryn, like all classes, replenishes 5% of his toughness when he gets a melee kill. However, if he takes the talent Smash Him here, he also replenishes 20% toughness after hitting a single enemy with a heavy melee attack. So that's just referring to jumping up your toughness all at once, although there are some classes like Veteran that have abilities that replenish additional over time. A second terminology that is very confusingly similar to replenishment is Toughness Regeneration. So Toughness Regeneration, like you can see on the passive Steady Grip here, is smooth increase of your toughness per second. So the two that I can think of that are actually in the talent tree, actually no, there's a third one on Shroud Field, but Steady Grip here gives us 5% toughness regeneration. What they don't state is that means per second. And then the Psyker's Bubble Shield, the Dome, is going to give 10% regeneration per second. There's a third type of regeneration, or another type of regeneration, called Coherency Regeneration. And this is what most often is referred to when you hear Toughness Regeneration. It's Coherency Regeneration, which is the regeneration of your toughness when you're hanging out near your allies. This is fixed at a static a number per second. It's not a percentage per second. So this toughness regeneration, it actually is less valuable the more toughness you have, because it's harder to fill your bar all the way up. It's a very weak form of regeneration. The last thing I want to say that's a toughness followed by another word is toughness damage reduction. So toughness damage reduction comes in multiple different forms, but at its base, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It reduces the amount of damage that's dealt to your toughness whenever you take an attack. So if I take a 100 damage attack to my toughness and it doesn't break my toughness, and I have this node here, I would instead take 90 damage to my toughness. The way you can calculate how much damage you will take is by subtracting the decimal for your toughness damage reduction from 1, and then multiplying that by the damage that you would take. So you can see 1 minus 0.1 equals 0.9, and then multiply 100 by 0.9 gives us 90. This is also an easy way to figure out how much additional nodes that offer toughness damage reduction would give us. So if I have another node that grants 10% toughness damage reduction, it is multiplicative and not additive. So instead of granting 10 plus 10 damage reduction, it grants 100 times 0.9 times another 0.9. And that damage reduction is obviously less. This is why you can never receive 100% toughness damage reduction from these nodes. Okay, well let's now talk about some things that all classes share. Some generic sources of toughness. That way you understand how to get the toughness before we even talk about all of the abilities and stuff that's different across classes. First and foremost, we have our lovely toughness boosts. These are on every talent tree. Plus 15 toughness is the smaller boost, and plus 25 toughness is a larger boost. In general, both of these are very, very good. Obviously, plus 25 toughness boosts are S tier. Absolutely pick them up if you can. Just looking at my Ogryn build here, it looks like we waste a talent point to come down here when we don't have any more keystones to pick up. However, this node is a plus 25 toughness node, and it means it's very, very valuable to pick up. This increases our base toughness, and therefore all of the other toughness gaining things that we have apply multiplicatively to it. The other ways we can gain toughness are through our curios, and curios can have up to 17% toughness on their main stat and up to 5% toughness as a perk. So between these two things, that is how you increase your base toughness bar. There's one more thing that many classes share that's related to toughness, and that's weapons. So let's talk about those before we get into class-specific things. Our weapons have blessings on them, and these blessings are what grant toughness, depending on what the blessing is. So first and foremost, I'm going to be ranking these as I go through them to let you know how good they are relatively. And I'll also show you which weapons they apply to. So the first blessing is Born in Blood. This is only on Ripper guns, and it's up to 6% toughness on close range kill. that's okay. You know, if you want some extra toughness reduction on your Ripper, it's perfectly fine because Rippers are very easy to kill multiple enemies with. I'd rate this probably A tier, A or B tier. Confident Strike. This is on a ton of weapons. It's an Ogryn weapon thing, generally. And this is gives you 8% toughness on chained hit, which means just continuing to swing the weapon. A lot of these weapons are very easy to continue to swing, and so therefore getting 8% toughness every time is very, very nice. If you were having a build or you're having trouble sort of struggling to survive and not go down, this is a great blessing to pick up. A tier. Glory Hunter. There's a bunch of different versions of Glory Hunter. I think that these are generally not super advisable unless you have a weapon that is just doesn't have any other blessings that are going to do anything for you. They only give that toughness on elite kill, and oftentimes classes like Veteran who specialize in ranged weapons have plenty of other ways to grant toughness on elite kills. So I would steer away from it and focus more on damage blessings or utility blessings on your weapon instead of gaining some extra toughness back. B tier. We've got Inspiring Barrage. This is on pretty much every auto fire weapon that the Ogryn has, so all the Ripper guns, all of the Twin Stubbers, but it's also on the Purgation Flamer for the Zealot. It's also on some of the braced auto guns that all the classes share. It's on the Shredder auto pistol. Generally, this is a pretty alright blessing. You know, you can get 40% of your toughness for spending a magazine. It can help if you have a range build that you don't want to have to worry about melee enemies kind of nicking you too much. However, there's a number of weapons in here that would be really, really detrimental to take it on. For instance, you wouldn't want to take it on the bolt gun. The bolt gun has too many other good blessings. And you wouldn't want to take the Shredder auto pistol at all. But I could see using something like this on the twin heavy stubber, especially in synergy with some stuff in the Ogryn tree. It'll have a lot of toughness regeneration if you grab both of those. However, I think blessings in general are at a premium. Getting the right 2 blessings on your weapon is really, really important right now, and this is just going to add some extra defense when we could have some amazing weapon blessings that really open up build opportunities for us, so I can't rate it any higher than B tier. Same Inspiring Barrage. Momentum. Hitting at least 3 enemies with an attack restores 15% toughness. There's so many other ways to grant 15% toughness. For instance, if you killed those 3 enemies, you would get 15% toughness with your melee attack. This is available on Ogryn clubs, which generally are not going to be hitting multiple enemies. Their first melees are pretty bad. The Cleaver would be alright, but remember, these weapons also have access to the one where you can get 6 or 8% toughness on chained hit. It's also available on the Thunderhammer and the Heavy Eviscerators. This is very, very seldom the case where you're going to be hitting 3 enemies with attack, and this becomes an absolutely dead blessing if you are against, 2 enemies or less. C tier. No Guts, No Glory. This is a specifically the Bully Club action. You slap enemies with your alt fire, with your elite special action hit. This gives you 50% toughness regeneration, which is your coherency regeneration per second for 5 seconds on hitting an elite specifically with the slap. This is F tier. You would never ever take this. These weapons all have way better blessings that you could get, and toughness regeneration in general is really, really bad, and you need to specifically hit an elite with a slap. This seems like a meme. F. Reassuringly accurate. This is available on the Las pistols. 16% toughness on a critical hit kill. You have to get both the kill and it has to be a critical hit when you get the kill, and it only gives you 16% toughness. D tier. Reassuringly accurate for the Grenadier Gauntlet. Again, you have to get a critical hit on the Grenadier Gauntlet on the Ogryn, which is one of the classes with the worst chance to crit. 36% toughness there is pretty much nothing. I'll say C tier, I guess, because 36 is better, but you just don't pick this. Slow and steady. This is on the pickaxes. I have to go C tier here. This pickaxes have way better things available to them, like Slaughterer over here. You don't want to be, you know, only getting 15% toughness on this, you know, for charging up a heavy attack. These heavy attacks can take forever. You know, you've got tons of other ways to replenish toughness in the Ogryn tree for landing heavy attacks. You don't need an extra 24%, and you don't need to waste a blessing on these really, really good weapons with this garbage. C tier. And that's everything for weapon blessings. All right, now it's time to talk about Veteran specifically. So Veteran specifically has 100 toughness, and then everything else is the same. You know, everybody regenerates, has the same regeneration delay for their toughness, and everybody regenerates 5% of their toughness on kill. Let's start by just going through all of his toughness regenerating effects, and then I'll give him an overview of him as a class. First and foremost, Covering Fire. When you kill an enemy with a range attack, allies within 5 meters of the target replenish 15% toughness and receive 10% to all base damage for 3 seconds. This applies to you as well. So if you are within 5 meters, you get this benefit. And generally, it's not all that useful because, you know, a lot of times when you're shooting enemies, they are out of range of all of your allies, right? Your allies should be fighting things on one side of the room, and you're shooting everybody else because they've got those enemies handled. So this does have use for like shotgunner builds when you're in there mixing it up in the fray. So I'll give it B tier, but it's not much higher than that. Catch Your Breath. Replenish 5% toughness per second when there is no enemies within 8 meters. This is really nice. This should say 5% toughness regeneration because it is a smooth effect, but they can't keep the terminology straight, so whatever. You know, 5% toughness per second is very nice. And remember, before we said the goal for ranged characters is to have enough toughness to not get your toughness fully broken by ranged attackers. And this just allows you to duel with ranged attackers all day. I'll give it an A tier. Yeah, obviously, because it doesn't work when you're within 8 meters. All right, Hunter's Resolve and Voice of Command. Let's talk about these two together. Voice of Command, first off, replenishes your toughness, so it fills your toughness to 100% and staggers all enemies within 9 meters and has a cooldown of 30 seconds. And Hunter's Resolve, whenever you use the ability... Wait, what the fuck? That's not right. Oh, well, they look fucking identical. Oh, wait, that is right. Okay, never mind. There we go. Okay, and Duty and Honor, which goes with it. That makes more sense. Duty and Honor, which goes with it. Voice of Command provides you and allies in coherency with plus 50 toughness for 15 seconds. This can exceed your maximum toughness. So this is like the S's of S tiers ever. 100% pick this with this, always. Never pick the other thing. This pushes you over 100% toughness, and it gives you golden shields. When you have gold toughness like that, nothing can hurt you. So normally, when you take a sniper round, sniper attacks are a high enough damage that they can break your toughness, no matter how much toughness you have, and damage your health directly in one shot. This can be really, really devastating. This can kill you instantly. Same with burster attacks. They can dive on you. They will instantly break your toughness and they'll deal 100 damage to your health, and 50 of that is going to be corrupted. So really, really bad stuff. If you have golden toughness or gold shields from Duty and Honor here, this exceeding maximum toughness thing, it blocks all of that damage. It will lower you to 0 toughness, but you will not take any health damage at all. This is just absolutely, absolutely insane. And this plus 50 toughness for 15 seconds, it becomes your new toughness. So when you are hanging out near your allies, or you have any other abilities like these ones, like Catch Your Breath, you will start to replenish not just up to your normal maximum toughness, but you will replenish up to that plus 50 maximum, which means if your golden shields are broken, you can regain them as long as you regain it within the 15-second duration, which makes this thing absolutely insane. The fact that it also lasts 15 seconds means that a veteran with full cooldown reduction on his curios has only an 11-second gap between ultimates where you are not covered by golden shields, and he also has a talent in his tree that allows him to reduce his cooldown by 6 seconds on special kill. So a veteran who kills 2 specials every 15 seconds is going to have full uptime on golden shields for the whole team. S's of S tiers ever. The singular best ability in the whole game. Okay, moving on. Hunter's Resolve. This is an augment for the stealth, for the infiltrate on the veteran class. 50% toughness damage reduction for 10 seconds on leading stealth. This needs to be a longer buff for it to be any real good at all, because the stealth for the veteran is a 45-second cooldown, and he doesn't have a hugely appreciable way of getting that cooldown to be too much shorter. It's very nice for the immediate after coming out, obviously, 50% toughness damage reduction. However, you aren't a super huge powerhouse on regenerating your toughness because you are using Infiltrate instead of using Voice of Command. I think this is okay, but the duration holds it back. If you are choosing Infiltrate, it's kind of B tier. Born Leader. This is also for the veteran. I mean, we're all talking about veteran stuff. Allies in Coherency replenish 15% of any toughness that you replenish. This one synergizes very nicely with Voice of Command. If you have 0% toughness and you have 220 some toughness in your bar and you shout and it puts you to 220 plus 50, your allies get 15% of the 270 toughness that you just replenished, which is, like 40, which is very, very nice. It helps allies to get into the over-shielded area, because if they're missing more than 50 when you shout, they won't get golden shields until they regenerate up to their full. So this is a helpful node, and it's the best in its tier, so I'll give it an A tier. Iron Will. Iron Will gives 50% reduced toughness damage if above 75% toughness. If last time I checked, 100% was above 75%, and 50% or whatever you're at when you use Voice of Command and put yourself 50 over cap is also above 75%. This is an S tier ability. Almost all veteran builds are going out of their way to pick this one up because it effectively doubles the value of all the toughness that you have over 75%, which is all of the golden shields that you have. They, instead of having plus 50 toughness, you now have at least plus 100 toughness effectively. Very S tier, and you will go out of your way to pick this one up on, I don't think I've seen a build that doesn't use it in, a serious build that doesn't use it in a very, very long time. So S tier. On Your Toes. This is below the keystone on the right side for Weapon Specialist. Activating Melee Specialist and Range Specialist replenishes 20% toughness, 3-second cooldown for each. What this means is when you get a melee kill and then swap to your range weapon, you'll get 20% toughness. Then you need to get a range kill and swap back to your melee weapon, and you'll replenish another 20% toughness. They each have a 3-second cooldown, which means you can swap back and forth. And replenish 40% toughness every 3 seconds. A very, very nice replenishment. It's better when you are a higher skill player and can reliably chain these skills. It is a big point investment to go that deep below the keystone because veteran talents are sort of at a premium. But it's a great toughness replenishment. I'll give it an A tier. Tunnel Vision. 5% toughness replenishment for each stack of focus. In addition, weak spot kills restore 10% stamina. So this is a really, really nice buff for the sharpshooter tree in the bottom left corner of veteran, and yeah, I think this is probably the best one that you can pick up in that tree. Again, veterans are very hungry for points, so you're probably not going to want to spare more than one to augment that ability if you're going in that direction. I generally tend to think that Marksman's Focus is the weakest keystone of the 3 on veteran, but if you are going that direction, this is an A tier. Target Down. If an enemy you have tagged dies, replenish 5% toughness and 5% stamina for each stack of focus target applied to you and allies in coherency. Okay, so this is the modifier or an augment for the middle node, the pinning the target node. I forget what it's called, like the mark target. The default number of stacks you can get with this is 5. So, assuming you don't have another augment node that can give you up to 8, but let's assume you get those 5 stacks. It takes 2 seconds to generate a stack, So this represents a 5-stack mark on a target, represents 10 seconds of waiting to get that charge, and then it will give you 25% toughness for killing that enemy. That is just generally not all that good, especially on Veteran, who has another node that when you kill an enemy that could be marked, elites or specials, you gain that much already. This does apply to you and allies in coherency, but you know, this generally isn't very impactful. And again, these nodes are at a especially lower down in the tree. There's a lot of stuff really good in the bottom tiers of Veteran, and so I have to give this one like a B tier. I don't see people picking this one over the other options. Close Order Drill, right at the top of the Zealot tree. We went in kind of a weird, wonky order here. This gives 33% toughness damage reduction, the more allies in coherency, up to. So I think it bottoms out at like 10 or something like that, and then goes up to 33. It's pretty easy to stay in coherency as Zealot, or sorry, as Veteran. You definitely want to, because you're giving your allies gold shields when you shout in coherency with them, and this is a huge amount of toughness damage reduction when you're near your allies. 33% is insane. This is an S tier, and it's right at the top of the tree. It's very easy to pick up as well. Confirmed kill. Replenish 10% toughness on elite or specialist enemy kill, and a further 20% toughness over 10 seconds. This when you get another kill, so you'll get one kill, right? And you'll instantly get the 10% jump, and then you'll start regenerating 2% per second. This stacks. So if you get another kill with it, you'll start another instance of this regeneration ability, this 20% regeneration over 10 seconds. So if you have 2 of these going within the same 10 seconds, you'll be regenerating 4 per second. If you get 5 kills in those 10 seconds, you'll be regenerating 10% per second. This is one of the Veteran's best toughness replenishment skills, and it's definitely an S tier. Also, right at the top of the tree, underneath Close Order Kill, these two together, mwah. All right, then we've got 2 more. Out for Blood. Your kills replenish an additional 5% toughness. This is over on the right top side of the Veteran tree. It's pretty good. This applies to melee kills and range kills, so that does make it very nice. Generally, it's not super accessible because of its positioning on the tree, and again, Veteran points are at a huge premium. You don't want to waste a single point anywhere. But you know, an additional 5% toughness, this doubles the amount of toughness replenishment you'll get on a melee kill on a regular enemy, and gives you 5% toughness replenishment on ranged kills on regular enemies, which can be pretty good. However, you know, you get plenty of other toughness replenishment, and I'll just give it a B tier, I think, because of its positioning being kind of bad. And then Exhilarating Takedown, replenish 15% tough. This is in the top left of the tree, by the way. Replenishing 15% toughness and gain 10% toughness damage reduction for 8 seconds on range weak spot kill. Stacks 3 times. This means that, you know, if you're consistently getting headshots, you get 30% toughness damage reduction. 8 seconds is a pretty dang good duration, and getting 15% toughness every time you shoot an enemy in the head and kill them is very, very solid. This is also on the top left of the tree, which has a better node leading to it. I think this is an A tier talent. It's going to make your toughness pop up higher, and it's going to you know, give you some damage reduction, allowing you to tank more damage. So very, very good stuff. Overall, the Veteran has some of the strongest toughness replenishment, and has the singular strongest toughness skill in the game with Voice of Command. Having Voice of Command with Duty and Honor, giving you that over toughness, plus Iron Will, and Confirmed Kill, and Close Order Drill, and all those ways you can make your toughness as strong as steel, or as strong as iron as it would be, and then, you know, keep yourself over cap using tactical awareness to reduce your cooldown. The Veteran can become the strongest toughness tank in the game, or pretty close to it. All right, so yeah, I give Veteran an S tier overall for toughness. I'm not gonna, you know, rank all of them like that. That seems silly. Let's look at the Ogryn. The Ogryn has a lot of toughness stuff in his tree. So you'll notice right off the bat that the Ogryn has the lowest base toughness. However, he makes up for that in having access to these 25 toughness nodes at the top of the tree. Pretty much all Ogryn builds will pick up both of these nodes. And let's start to get into some specifics. Geez, what order did I do these in? All right, let's do them in reverse order this time, since it seems like I did them in sort of weird Twilight Zone order. Steady Grip, 5% toughness regeneration while bracing your ranged weapon. So this depends on the weapon you use entirely, but this is going to give you 5% per second, and it's pretty good. The problem being, weapons like the kickback, you can brace them and get the 5% regeneration per second, but the second you fire, you go into the animation to reload, and you cannot brace while you're in that animation. So it becomes more useful for weapons that have a more continual fire, like the Twin Link Stubbers and the Ripper guns. However, it's just a nice bit of consistent regeneration, and it can help keep smaller attacks from chipping you down when you're running a more range focus Ogryn build. I'll give it an A tier for that. Linchpin, toughness replenished while in coherency is increased by 50%. This means that the normal 5% replenishment that you'll get from getting a melee kill jumps to 7.5%, but more importantly for Ogryn, it means that when he gets a normal 20% from heavy attacking a single enemy with a melee kill, it'll jump to 30%. And there's another node lower down on the tree for Ogryn that increases his coherency radius by a lot, which means that it's much easier for him to stay in coherency. This is I'd say an A tier ability. Actually, no, I'll give it an S tier ability, just because it's a multiplier for all the other replenishments he has, and that is sort of how the Ogryn survives. Heavyweight, 30% damage against Bulwarks, Crushers, Plagueguards, and Reavers. Also receive 30% damage reduction against the same. So it only applies against these enemies, but it's a 30% damage reduction, not toughness damage reduction, just damage reduction, which remember before, it means we're going to take whatever damage we would take to our toughness after all of the toughness damage reduction calculation, and then multiply that by 0.7. So this ends up being, and this is the first node on the whole tree, you will always pick this node just because it gives you 30% damage and reduces 30% damage against some of the most dangerous enemies in the game to you, or to anyone. So why not take it? S tier. Smash 'em. Replenish 20% toughness after hitting a single enemy with a heavy melee attack. How hard is that to do? Very fucking easy to do. And 20% toughness. Also, the Ogryn's heavy melee attacks are very often killing enemies. So if you hit and kill an enemy with this, you will replenish 20% and 5% for killing them, which is more if we have another node we'll talk about in a second. And you'll get another 50% on whatever you get here. So 1.5 times what you get here. So for a total of like 40 to 45% replenishment for hitting a single enemy with a heavy melee attack and killing them. This single-handedly allows you to solo bosses, because they literally cannot break your toughness, because you can replenish it 20% every single time you hit them over and over. Just a really solid S tier ability for regeneration for the Ogryn, or replenishment for the Ogryn. Then we've got the best defense, which ironically is not the best defense. The last one we talked about is the best defense. This one replenishes 20% toughness after hitting multiple enemies with a single heavy melee attack. Now you can take both of these together. This one, however, takes an extra node to get to. This one's previous node is heavyweight, which you're already taking, so both of these are S tier together. They're an easy 2-point pickup. This one requires an investment in a node that's not very good, so it is a little bit worse, and it's also a little bit worse in its effect because you have to hit multiple, 2 or more enemies to get its effect. It's still 20% regeneration, and it works very nicely with Ogryn because many of Ogryn's heavy melee attacking weapons have a single strong melee attack and then a sweep attack on the second heavy. So it allows you to just chain heavies without worrying about, oh, this second attack is going to hit multiple enemies and therefore I won't get the smash 'em bonus. Now you'll get 20% out of that sweep attack as well. So I'll give it an A tier just because its placement and its effect are a little bit worse, but not too worse. Unstoppable. When heavy hitter is at 5 stacks, toughness replenished from melee kills is increased by 100%. So it'll take your toughness replenished from melee kills from 5% to 10%. This is a node that we're already going to pick up. We're picking this up on heavy hitter because heavy hitter is the strongest keystone on Ogryn, and this is just another bit of toughness replenishment that, remember, when we're in coherency is being times by 1.5, so we'll go to 15% replenishment from melee kills when we do that. S tier. Toughest. This is a node for Feel No Pain. Let's do Feel No Pain first. Feel No Pain. This is the keystone for in the middle tree for Ogryns. You are blessed with 10 stacks of Feel No Pain. Each stack grants 2.5% toughness replenishment, meaning when we get kills, we're going to multiply them by 1.25, and 2.5% damage reduction, flat damage reduction, not just toughness damage reduction. Taking damage removes on stacks. Stacks are restored every 3 seconds. This is a very easy ability to keep those stacks fairly high on, and it's just going to mean that you take 25% less damage, and you replenish 25% more of your toughness whenever you're heavy hitting or whatever it is that you're doing. Combine that with Toughest, which is just going to give you an additional 2.5% toughness replenishment per stack. So if you have max stacks, you probably figured it out. That means you're getting 50% additional toughness replenishment. And that stacks with all the other stuff on Ogryn. So Ogryn can get his toughness back at a really, really crazy rate. Pain Outburst. When Feel No Pain reaches 0 stacks, which is this node right here, you push back enemies and replenish 20% toughness. This can only occur once every 30 seconds. So this ability is kind of odd. You have to lose all of your stacks, which is 10 stacks, and it's pretty hard to do that because you're regenerating 1 every 3 seconds, and when you're pushing, which you're kind of often doing as Ogryn, it does push back enemies and replenishes a little bit of toughness, not as much as I'd like, but a little bit, and it's only once every 30 seconds. This is not generally something that you want to pick up. It's not all that useful. There's a lot of nodes that are pretty dang good on Ogryn, and this just kind of isn't one of them. However, it does have a little bit of a side use that it will push dogs off of you if you happen to get dogged and you're disabled. This can auto push back dogs, and so there is that. But B tier in general, it's just not that good, especially on a 30-second cooldown, and you have to like lose all your stacks, which you don't want to do to get the effect. Mobile emplacement. This is right over the bottom right keystone. 20% reduced damage, minus 20% reduced damage reads to me like you're going to take extra damage, but 20% reduced damage while bracing a ranged weapon. Just like we talked about before with the steady grip here, certain weapons you can't brace them while you're consistently firing them, so this depends on the weapon you're using. Oftentimes if you're going this deep in that keystone tree, you're going for a twin leg stubber or ripper build. 20% reduced damage is fine, so I'll give it a B tier, but generally it's over the worst keystone, and many builds, even gun focused builds, aren't going for that keystone, so I think its placement is just kind of bad. B tier. Won't Give In. 20% damage reduction for each knocked down or incapacitated ally within 20 meters. So this one used to be an auto pick on the tier that it was on, because in order to get to Feel No Pain down at the bottom middle, you had to choose this or its counterpart node. But recently its counterpart node has been reworked to give it's the one that gives 250% stagger on a push every 8 seconds, and that can be very, very useful for a multitude of reasons. Like having that much stagger is very nice to get enemies off of you and away from you. We have a lot of other damage reduction on this class, and how often are you really having this happen? I think there's better stuff to have when your allies are down than taking a little bit less damage. It's still useful, and if you're going down into the bottom middle, it's either this or the shove back thing. I'll give it a B tier. Implacable. 15% damage reduction when charging melee attacks. A tier. Just easy pickup. We're going to heavy hitter when we're picking this anyway, so we're going to be charging up our heavy attacks, and we're going to be probably getting hit while we're charging up our heavy melee attacks. 15% damage reduction is 15% less damage. We like that. So yeah, A tier, because it's in a good position and it has a pretty decent effect. Delight in Destruction. 8% damage resistance per bleeding enemy in melee range. Stacks 6 times. Now I'd love them to define what melee range is. I would have to assume it's close range, but this stacks up to 6 times. It's really easy to get 6 bleeding enemies as Ogryn because we have what's it called? This. batter. The ogre can hit 6 enemies with a single heavy melee attack and put bleeds on all of them and instantly get this buff, which is 48% damage resistance. It does end when those enemies die, but obviously against like larger packs of enemies, like you see a couple of crushers and a boss or something like that, if you get them all bleeding, you got a bunch of damage resistance, and we're already gonna have enemies bleeding around us anyway, so why not get a bunch of fucking damage resistance out of it? This is Asir. Too stubborn to die, 100% toughness replenishment while below 33% health. So if you've been following along with the Ogryn story so far, you've noticed that he has a bunch of different ways that his toughness replenishment can be super high. He gets 50% extra for being in coherency, he gets double replenishment when he has full stacks of heavy hitter, he gets 20% for just heavy attacking a single enemy in melee, and this is an additional 100% toughness replenishment while below 33% health, and this used to be 25, now it's 33. That means that if you've been down twice and you're on your last wound on Damnation, you have this active. However, prior to then, it's dead. It doesn't do anything. And Ogryns that are playing to their capacity, unless you're intentionally getting downed multiple times or getting low multiple times, this just isn't going to be all that effective. It could be a good clutch perk, but we probably don't need to regenerate or replenish 85% of our toughness on a single heavy melee hit. It's cool for a meme, but I think the 40% replenishment is enough, and this only becomes active when you're in a precarious position already, right? Being that low on HP is you're asking for trouble, in my opinion. So I'm gonna give it a B tier. It's definitely better than it used to be. Stay close. This is Aura right in the middle of the Ogryn tree. 25% toughness replenishment for you and allies in coherency. It just multiplies all the toughness gain that enemies or your allies get for getting kills and all that good stuff by 1.25. It's all right. It's like a B tier. It's definitely not A. It's not as good as the suppression one on the right side of the tree, because it's really easy to suppress enemies as Ogryn. You got big loud guns. It's not very anything. Yeah, your allies probably won't even notice the difference. So B tier. Replenish 10%. This is Stomping Boots. It's an augment for the Ogryn charge, by the way, Indomitable. Stomping Boots replenishes 10% toughness per enemy hit with Indomitable. This is... I mean, you're gonna pick it up anyway because you're on the way. I'll give it S tier because we're gonna pick up the node that's beyond it as far as augments for Indomitable, and Indomitable is such a powerful ability. You charge directly into the enemies, you knock them all on their asses, and it's a complete tide turner ability, right? No pun intended. Whatever is attacking you is now laid out on the floor, and now instead of like you were on the back foot, maybe you got it shot a lot prior to this, now your toughness is fully replenished if you're hitting at least 10 enemies. So yeah, I'll give it an S tier. It's in a great position. You're pretty much guaranteed picking it up if you're going for this ultimate, which is like probably the Ogryn's strongest ultimate for game-changing stuff. And just puts you in a dominant position coming out. Bullet Bravado for the other node on the right side of the tree for Point Blank Barrage. Replenish 2% toughness for every shot fired and 10% toughness to each reload while the ability is active. So here's the thing. When you're replenishing 2% toughness for every shot fired, you are using a rapid fire gun that is not reloading very often, so you're not getting this benefit. And if you're doing that, you're probably bracing the gun, which means you're already getting the advantage of steady grip worked in there, so you're already regenerating 5% per second. This is going to regenerate your toughness, very, very fast. You're going to fill it up pretty dang quick. And you're going to get 10% toughness on each reload. I'll give it an A tier. It helps out the classes that the guns that reload more often more. It allows you to trade a little bit when you're doing that, your gun down mode, and it's also on the way to picking up your other node. You have to get this in order to get either the burning bullets or the rending, so it's got a you have to pick it basically if you're going into that ability. So A tier. And that's everything for Ogryn. Wow. All right, guys. I'm going to take a vocal break. We'll call an intermission right here, and we'll regroup and we'll talk Psyker. Okay, Psyker. Well, as I'm famed for saying, apparently, Psyker doesn't have any ways of regenerating his toughness. JK, he has like 15 million of them. I don't know who quoted me on that, but they were wrong. First off, Psyker has the second lowest base toughness, but he's got a bunch of 15 toughness nodes in the tree. They're up there and they're down here, right? There they are. So you're going to pick up a number of those on the way. And the one thing that he is lacking is he doesn't have very many sources of toughness damage reduction. However, that is balanced out by the fact that he has the most sources of toughness replenishment. Oftentimes, these four at the top here, you'll take more than one, you'll take multiple. And that's going to mean his toughness is just jumping back up like crazy. So let's get right into some of these nodes. We're going to start off with Soul Stealer. 7.5% toughness on warp attack kill. This means all of your staffs and all of your blitz abilities and all of your ultimate abilities. Very, very nice because the Psyker is not often in melee attacks. Doesn't apply to gun Psyker, obviously, but most of these Psykers, the Psyker has multiple powerful builds that use his staffs and use his ultimate abilities like Venting Shriek plus Flame Staff, like those things together. 7.5% is also a lot. It's 1.5 times the melee kill for classes. So this is a high A tier, if not S tier, very up there. Quietude, replenish 5% toughness for each 10% of peril quelled. This is just a nice passive regeneration because Psyker doesn't know what they're doing. They're working their peril up and then they're letting it fall down either while they're doing something else or they're venting it themselves. If you vent a full nice juicy staff worth of peril, you'll get 50% of your toughness. It's just a great way to keep it topped off. I'll give it an A tier. 2% warp expenditure here, 2.5% toughness for every 10% generated. This just isn't as much. However, it has a really nice synergy with Scryer's Gaze because Scryer's Gaze has you constantly trickling up in terms of peril, and there's other ways you can vent it by getting there's other abilities in the tree that vent your peril without having to use a staff or whatever. You can just get crits to vent it. So you're just kind of constantly generating some peril, or generating some toughness, replenishing it. So I'll give it an A tier. If this number was a little bit higher, it would be kind of close to being broken, but it would be better. But A tier is still really, really good. You'll take it if you're going for Scryer's Gaze in that fashion. Metal. Critical hits replenish 5% toughness. Also grant 5% increased movement speed for 4 seconds, stacks 3 times. As if this wasn't enough, this is icing on the cake. The Psyker is the slowest class, but gaining 15% movement speed is very, very nice. And he has a base 7.5% crit chance, as you can see here. So it's like the easiest class in the game to get crits with. So many of his builds rely on critical attacks, so this is an absolute must pick up. Specifically with Gun Psyker, you can almost instantly fill your toughness bar back up. You can fill it up in less than a second because you have such high crit and you can fire these bullets so fast. Yeah, so this is an S tier ability for certain, especially if you're going into crit builds. Essence Harvest. This is, man, what is the ordering on this? Let's go back over here. Here we go. Soul Drinker. This is close to the top of the thing. Now, this is one of the newer ones. Killing an enemy with Soul Blaze restores 5% toughness and grants 5% crit chance for 5 seconds. This is okay. There's certain builds that this could work pretty well on. If you are using Venting Shriek with the spreading flames, lingering flames, what is it called? The 6 stacks of flames you build up, you get launched 6 stacks, you melt everything. This is going to be really nice. It's going to keep your toughness nice and high, and it's going to give you extra crit chance, which is something that a lot of Psyker builds really, really want. However, it's it's behind a 10% attack speed node that you wouldn't necessarily want, but I like that it has that dual effect. I'm going to give this thing A tier. Just specifically if you are going for Soul Blaze focus stuff. If you're going to get kills with Soul Blaze at all, if that's the focus of the build in some way, A tier. If not, don't. Alright, unlucky for some. When an ally in Coherency gets knocked down, replenish 100% toughness to all other allies in Coherency. D tier. First of all, you have to be in Coherency with this ally that's getting knocked down, and then the other allies that are in Coherency with you are gonna get 100% toughness. Oftentimes when people get knocked down, they are not in Coherency, is the issue here. They'll get separated from the pack, and then they'll get knocked down. If someone is that close to you and getting knocked down, there's bigger problems that you have. That I don't think replenishing 100% toughness is going to do a whole lot for you. Yeah, this is just such a weird ability, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone use it, or if I haven't noticed the effect. So D tier. One with the warp, gain toughness damage reduction of 10% to 33% based on your current peril. S tier. This is one of the Ogryn Psykers. Scary thing here. The Psykers' only significant sources of toughness damage reduction, since they're regenerating so much toughness, replenishing so much toughness, we need some way to extend that toughness, and toughness damage reduction is that. It's very easy to get and maintain a high peril, especially with some new nodes like the extended don't blow yourself up in Scryer's Gaze. And it's just gonna make you a little bit tankier, since most of your health or most of your ability to tank damage is coming from your toughness on Psyker. Scryer's Gaze, speaking of, Scryer's Gaze now grants 20% damage reduction while active. I've seen people saying like, oh yeah, you pick this up if you're going for Scryers. I think you probably would. 20%. I guess because there's only a few other choices for the Psyker that actually give toughness DR. You would pick it up. But it's only while it's active. I'm gonna give it a B tier. I just don't think you can keep like a little bit more than 50% uptime on Scryers generally, like with probably average to above average play, and it's just when you have Scryers going, you're already like moving and killing so fast. It's generally not a time where you're taking a whole lot of damage. So yeah, I'll give it a B tier. All right, Sanctuary. This is the augment modifier for when you are using the dome. So it doesn't apply when you're using the regular shield, but when you're using the dome, which I think a lot of players do, especially at like middle levels, you replenish 10% toughness each second. And when it dissipates, all allies inside gain 50% toughness damage reduction for 5 seconds. Now this is a super short duration, and most allies are leaving this fucking thing well before it expires. Because, this is a crazy game. Staying in one spot is going to get you in trouble. The dome is very nice, though. Replenishing 10% toughness per second is a very, very solid effect, because if you take any chip damage, like say you're getting meleeed by an enemy inside the dome, they might hit you and do 20% of your toughness or something like that, but they have a cooldown on how long it takes them to attack, right? So before they attack you again, since this toughness, it's going on instantly. It doesn't get interrupted by any damage you might take. So this is going on instantly. It's a great way to counteract stuff like gas clouds, because gas clouds tick down your toughness. This will just boot your toughness right back up. This part of the ability is kind of crap and doesn't last nearly long enough, but this is absolutely excellent. If you are going into the middle tier for the bubble, S tier for sure. Disrupt Destiny. The bottom right keystone, very good keystone, especially for like gun psychers, precise killing psychers. Everyone knows that you can't get 25 stacks of perfection since it's impossible, but you can get 10% toughness for killing these marked targets, and that's what we're here to focus on today. However, as far as toughness replenishment nodes, 10% toughness for killing that marked target is kind of dinky, There's tons of other ways we can replenish toughness on Psyker, and if you're looking for a way to regenerate toughness, Disrupt Destiny isn't it. Disrupt Destiny is great for a number of other reasons, and I included it here because it does give something to do with toughness, but toughness replenishment is not what this ability is about. So C tier for toughness replenishment, but A tier or S tier even for other purposes. Psychic leeching. Using your blitz while empowered psionics is active replenishes 15% toughness to you and allies in coherency. I mean, I don't really see a whole lot of people going empowered psionics these days. The other two trees are very, very meta and very, very good. Empowered psionics is something that I think a lot of players more in like Malice difficulties are using, because then you can just wipe the whole game with just throwing assails only. This does mean that like every assail you throw out replenishes toughness, but again, it's like, I don't know, man. Empowered psionics is just such kind of a not great keystone to go for in general. B tier, I guess. It's B tier if you're going for empowered psionics. If you're not, like C or D tier. Empiric Resolve. Well, for the purposes of what we're talking about here, F tier. Absolutely do not pick this shit. It is a straight 30. It multiply whatever toughness you were going to replenish from any other source by 0.7. So your fucking dome, if you have Bubble Dome, Sanctuary, and you were replenishing 10%, congratulations. Now you're replenishing 7%. If you were using Warp Expenditure and Quietude together because you're a caster, and then for some reason you think to yourself, I want to cast more, so I will use Empiric Resolve so I don't explode myself. Congratulations, you just made these two 30% worse. So instead of 5%, you're replenishing, 3.5%. Specifically for what we're talking about here, F tier, as a node in general, like D tier, it's just not worth it. So there's so much stuff on Psyker that revolves around having high peril, and the thing with Psyker is he doesn't have great toughness damage reduction, and he doesn't have health. So what he needs to do to not die when he's taking damage is replenish his toughness constantly. If you nerf that about him, if you take away his toughness replenishment, I mean, you better be a fucking god at not taking damage, or you're gonna get destroyed out there. So F tier. And finally, Essence Harvest. This is a node for warp charges. The keystone at the bottom left. Anytime you get a warp charge, you gain 5 seconds of 6% toughness regeneration or replenishment per second. And it doesn't stack, it just keeps going every time you get a new warp charge. This is very nice. This is one of the more powerful, this probably is the most powerful keystone for staff builds, which are pretty dang good right now. And this is a great way because it's a consistent effect. Those consistent effects, especially when you don't have to do something stupid like brace your gun for it, Ogryns, or stand in a bubble, Psykers, they are very, very good because you'll take a little bit of chip damage from, say, like a bullet hitting you, and it'll be regenerating constantly. So before you even look down at your toughness bar, it's filled back up. So I'm gonna give this S tier. It's a great way to keep topped off, and therefore you're much safer from like little incidences of damage. Like you could run through some gas, and this will be replenishing while you're running through the gas. Very, very nice. S tier. All right, I think that's everything for Psyker. Okay, finally we are on to, oh, don't look at this. Don't look at this, guys. Even though you're watching the fucking video right now. I'm certainly not making a video out of this. And then we gotta go on to Zealot. Zealot. There it is. Okay, Zealot. All right, so Zealot has 70 base toughness. Seems a little bit overkill, personally, but same stats otherwise. And Zealot has a very... I like that there seems to be like 1 or 2 ways that all of these classes deal with their sort of toughness dynamic. The Ogryn has generic damage reduction. The Veteran can keep his toughness overcapped and gives his toughness like the strength of like titanium. The Psyker is just constantly replenishing his toughness through like 15 different means. And then the Zealot can also make his toughness super strong, but he can regenerate in some very, very cool ways. This is not one of them. Fuck you, enemies within, enemies without. Replenish 2.5 toughness per second while within 5 meters of at least 3 enemies. F. F tier. Maybe D if you want to be charitable to it. When this game launched in beta, this node was replenish 5. Wait, hold on. Was it 7.5%? I think it was 7.5% toughness per second while within 5 meters of enemies. So you just had to have an enemy within any range of you, or within 5 meters, and you would replenish 7.5% of your toughness per second, which was amazing. You would get grabbed by a mutant and it would pummel you on the ground, but between each time it slammed you on the ground, you would regenerate all that toughness, so you would take no damage. It was awesome, and it's active all the time. Now you have to be near at least 3 enemies, which isn't always the case. Thinking about like soloing bosses that chase you away. And it's 2.5% toughness per second. That's 40 seconds to cap your toughness with this ability. It used to be 7.5%, and then it was 5%. And it was okay because, like, sometimes when you're kiting backwards, you're like, okay, I see my toughness to come back a little bit more, and then I'll feel confident to engage. Now you're not going to wait 40 fucking seconds for your toughness to regenerate to re-engage with this enemies that you're kiting around. And it's in the wrong direction for all the good abilities that you actually want. So it's behind a bad ability, or it's behind a bad node in the tree. It's got bad positioning, and it's a bad ability. F tier. Blood Redemption. 50% toughness replenishment on melee kill. Unfortunate that this one has to share space with Scourge, which is pretty much essential for 99% of Zealot builds these days. Yeah, this bumps us from 5% toughness replenishment on a melee kill to 7.5%. It's just not that big of a difference. There are tons of other ways that Zealots replenish their toughness, and this is just not it. C tier. Maybe D, whatever. Fortitude and Fellowship, 50% coherency toughness regeneration. This is an interesting one. Remember what we said at the very beginning. Coherency toughness regeneration is like flat. It is not percentage based. So it's better if you have like lower toughness, because if you're regenerating 3 per second, or with this, you're regenerating 5 per second, and you only have 85 to regenerate, which is the lowest that Zealot can make a full build and have, it's going to be a little bit better. You could do this plus the toughness, coherency speed, or toughness regeneration speed on Curios, and actually you kind of have like a little bit of a meme build there where you can go stealth and replenish it. However, the Zealot in general is a melee class, and you're in melee with enemies. And when you are in melee with enemies, when you have enemies that are trying to engage you in melee, the game says do not regenerate toughness or coherency toughness. So if you're meleeing enemies constantly and you're not using a stealth build, this is a dead perk. So I have to, in all good faith, give it a D tier, even though I do use it in one stealth build that I have, but only because it's a loner build, and it's a very, very edge case where you're using all those fancy curios and stuff. But outside of that, D tier. Don't pick it and expect like, oh, because I'm fighting in melee with my allies, I'm regenerating toughness. No, if an enemy is engaging you in melee, if they're within 10 feet of you, they are blocking you from getting this. And it's just generally not good in general. Bleed for the Emperor. Damage that would take your health to the next wound is reduced by 40%. Fuck no. What the hell? Like, damage that would take your health to the next wound. First of all, the best way to play this game is with 0 wound curios. Fight me on that, Darktide elitists. You should not have any wound curios. So there is exactly 2 breakpoints at which you would get this effect. It's when you're going below 50% HP and when you're going to 0% HP. So you're gonna get a 40% damage reduction, but you're probably, like, if you're playing on high difficulties, you're probably still going over that threshold. Because if it would take your health to the next wound. So it will reduce the damage to your toughness, but what a weird fucking perk, man. Like this would work better if you're doing martyrdom, but martyrdom is such garbo in general. And this is also on the bad side of the tree, the top left side of the tree. Do not pick this. D tier. Maybe F. D or F. Vicious Offering, also in that bottom left. It's right behind this one. Or right before it. Replenish 10% toughness on heavy attack kill. It's alright. If you're using a hammer, remember, you're already getting 5% for getting a kill. So this gives you 15% for heavy attack kill. If you're using like a hammer and sweeping around, it's not bad. But you're using a rapier? That's 50%. It's not bad. It's unfortunately got a bad placement, but like, you know, if you're a player who's not all about like super optimal stuff and you just need a little bit more toughness, I'll give it to you. I think just on its own, it would be like a B tier, but because of its bad placement, C tier. The Voice of Terra, right in the middle, top middle of the tree, but it's sort of in the bottom of that one. 4% toughness on range kill. Normally you don't get any toughness on a range kill, so this gives you something. The Zealot isn't exactly someone who I depend on to do a whole lot of range killing, and 4% toughness is pretty lame here, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a D tier. Moving on. Second Wind. Oh, finally a good Dalat in here. Replenish 15% toughness on a successful dodge. Okay, let me break it down to you what this means, guys. If I see an enemy attacking me, and I press the space key, and I dodge that enemy, and it just so happens that 2 other enemies were also swinging at me at the same time, and because I'm in the dodge action, they both swing at me and miss, the game says, oh, well, you did 3 successful dodges. Congratulations. Have 45% of your toughness back. And I say, thank you, Second Wind. God bless you. This ability is almost single-handedly responsible for Zealot being as good as it is in defensive maneuvers, because you don't have to kill any enemies to get this. If I have a fucking Chaos spawn who's greened up because we're playing on like Maelstrom difficulty, he's got the green buff and he's trying to chomp my little dick. If I just keep dodging backwards, yeah, he might hit me every now and then, but every time I dodge him successfully, like he does that little 3 slap forward, like patty cake animation where he rolls forward. If I just keep dodging backwards, he'll miss me 3 times with that, and I'll regenerate my toughness. And then I can go in and take a hit and get a stab. You can play super sloppy with this if you still dodge sometimes. Remember, you can also dodge range attacks. So you like a gunner's about to shoot at you, slide on him, dodge the side on him, regenerate some freaking toughness for free. S tier, take this. Enduring Faith, oh my god. Wow, and these 2 are on the good side of the tree, and they're what makes this side of the tree the good side. 50% toughness damage reduction on critical hit 4 seconds. If you know anything about Zealot right now, it is not fucking hard to get a crit on Zealot. And 50% toughness damage reduction for 4 seconds. That is so easy to do. You're in melee, you're slashing your fucking dueling sword, your knife around, you're getting crits left and right, front and center, and you have 50% toughness DR right off the top with this thing. S tier. Always pick this. If you're doing anything with crit at all, always pick this. Good balance. This is directly below that, in that sort of middle right tree. A successful dodge grants 25% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. This is generic damage reduction, and therefore, when we get all of our damage reduction together for all the other stuff in the Zealot tree, then we come in afterwards and we say, all right, take that final number, times it by 0.75. Now you have your final damage number. This is just such a great tanky stat. We are successfully dodging a ton, but you know, just like I was saying before, the Chaos spawn is chasing you down. It does this little patty cake slap. It rolls towards you, and you dodge a couple of them, but you take one of the slaps, but you've just dodged, you know? And therefore, you take very, very, very little damage. You're going to take like 7 damage from that attack, and you're going to almost instantly replenish it because you're going to dodge again, and you're going to get Second Wind. Just dodge all day. Shield of Contempt. When you're an ally in Coherency takes damage, they trigger 60% damage reduction for 4 seconds. Triggers every 10 seconds. I don't see so many people picking this, but I have this hunch that when the new Havoc mode comes out, we're going to see a very, very competitive meta where support Zealots who are using this ability and are using Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude are very, very desired in the game, because this is a fuck ton of damage reduction. And if you have allies that can consistently avoid damage, you know, for 10 seconds or so, and then they take a hit, this blocks a big portion of that damage. Yeah, it's really, really good. And it's like when shit hits the fan, right? If, like, for instance, a grenadier throws a flame grenade into your group and you're all trapped in the corner. The first tick that it hits you, it activates the ability. It doesn't negate the damage from my testing. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But then the subsequent ones for the next 4 seconds are all reduced by 60%. And that is enough time to get yourself out of that bad situation. It's extremely good for situations where you're in like gas or flame or whatever else, and it can make the difference between your allies surviving and not. And it applies to when you are downed, like if you are downed or an ally is downed, and you'll see it. They're like, the gunners are blasting away in your downed body, and suddenly their progress on like shooting you while you're downed slows down by a fuck ton because you got 60% DR for the next 4 seconds. Very, very nice ability. I'm going to give it an A tier, and we might revisit this when the new meta for Havoc comes out and upgrade it a little bit. It might be S tier, if you're going to that middle tree. Unfortunately, normally we're kind of short on points for it. Benediction, 15% toughness damage reduction for you and all allies in coherency. This is a very, very good Zealot aura, and remember, the Ogryn doesn't have any by himself. He doesn't have any toughness damage reduction, but he has all that regular damage reduction. If he gets a Zealot on his team, he takes the final damage that he would get and multiplies it by 0.85. So this is an S tier. This is because you have to choose one of the 3 auras in the Zealot, right? And this is the best one, so it has to be S. Or like A. I mean, it's better than the other 2. And it's good. Fury of the Faithful. The charge ability, FOF, dash forward, replenishing 50% toughness, etc., etc., etc. You gain a 20% attack speed steroid, big crit, all that stuff. This thing can have 2 charges, and with the Invocation of Death, the new Invocation of Death, you're having this thing off cooldown approximately every 10 to 15 seconds. This is something that the Zealot is super fucking strong at, and is one of the strongest things in the game to be able to do, which is when you get hit by an attack, oftentimes you don't anticipate when you're going to take damage, right? You're not like, oh shoot, I see that attack coming, I better brace for impact. No, it's like, wham, what the fuck just hit me? Oh my god, there was a mauler behind me I didn't see. This is a panic button that you press, and you instantly jump up 50% toughness. So you'll get hit by a little trash enemy that you didn't see that was off the side of your screen and didn't play a fucking swing sound notifier. And you'll be like, shit, I have low toughness. If I get hit again, I'm going to take health damage. Nah, just press the button and you just pop your toughness up 50%. If you have 2 charges, you can double tap it and you can jump to 100%. This was 100%, by the way, when the game launched in beta. You could get 100% toughness for tapping this button. It was awesome. Damn, those were good days. But this ability is still super, super good. As far as toughness regeneration, it's up there. It's because damage comes in bursts in this game, because toughness is generally you take damage and it's like, bam, like blat, like you lose a big chunk of it. You take a sniper round or something like that, you lose a big chunk of it. You need to get it back then, because you've got melee enemies who are on you, and if they hit you, you don't want to take health damage, you want to take toughness damage instead, and this is, if I haven't gone over it enough. A tier, just because I have to compare it to Chorus next, which is S tier, because Chorus is a stop everything, just pause the game, okay, just, hey, like, enemies, time out. I see y'all are trying to pin my allies down. There's a dog on one guy. Oh, speaking of a dog, hey buddy, tell him about the dog. Yeah, there's a dog pinning down your allies, and you got a charger, and there's a trapper coming in, there's a boss. You press this button and you go, hold on guys, time out, and everybody stops what they're doing and does a little dance party where they have a little seizure, and you and all your allies get invulnerability, which is nuts, right? They have stun immunity and invulnerability, and it bumps all of their toughness up to plus 100 over the duration. Because it's also a duration ability, it gives all of your allies time to be like, oh shit, that guy over there is using chorus, I need to get in close. Versus veteran shout, where you have that one chance to be close enough to the guy who's shouting and you don't know what he's going to use it. But chorus lasts for 5 seconds or 6 seconds almost. So yeah, you can get in there and you can get some benefit of it. And even if you are just overcapped, even if you only get 1 pulse on you, your toughness goes up to 120, you get gold toughness, and therefore that 20% gold toughness will take a sniper round for you, and you will drop to 0 toughness, but you won't take health damage. A single point of gold toughness is like, if like Veterans Shout gave you a single point of gold toughness rather than 50, it would make a very minimal difference. The difference that gold toughness makes is that it blocks overkill damage entirely. So even getting a single pulse of this on your allies is hugely, hugely impactful. And the fact that this offers a full reset for your team, for your whole ass team, and sets up them to reload their guns, kill all the enemies within the radius that are stunned in the next 5 seconds. It just pauses the game, but your allies get to keep doing their own thing, like they're fucking King Crimson or some shit, or like, you know, Zawado, and fucking just own everything around you for 5 seconds. S tier toughness ability, S tier ability. The only problem with it is you can't do anything. You can't join in the murder. So, but if you're a support zealot, which I think is going to become more and more impactful as group-based gameplay for Havoc becomes more the focus, like a solid 4 stack. S. Okay, Holy Cause, channeling 5 pulses. There are 7 pulses, I think. Yeah, 7 pulses, I'm pretty certain. Grants 30% toughness damage reduction to you and allies in coherency lasts 10 seconds. So, first of all, we got to consider, what's the cooldown on this thing? Forgot to mention that. Cooldown is 60-second base. There is this thing, I don't know, you might have heard of it, it's called Invocation of Death on Zealot. And what it does is it triples your cooldown reduction, or your cooldown rate. So instead of 60, if you are getting a crit every 4 seconds, which remember, we're a Zealot, that ain't fucking hard to do, you are dropping down to 20 seconds base cooldown. And if you're taking cooldown reduction on your Curios, because when you're channeling this ability, it's not actively cooling down, when you pop this chorus thing out, it puts your cooldown timer to 54 seconds. And so you just got to get rid of 54 seconds of cooldown. It's unfortunate that it doesn't cool down while you're using it. I think that would make it a little bit too good, because you'd end up at like 45 seconds effectively. But yeah, this gives you 30% toughness damage reduction for 10 seconds. You know, it's a 1-point pickup, and the fact that you just gave all of your allies 100 over toughness gold shields for 15 seconds, and now what you're basically saying is, hey, those gold shields, they're actually not plus 100, they're actually plus 130 for the next 10 seconds. That can make a big difference, and it's a 1-point investment. I'm gonna give this A tier just because you might want that point for something else, and you know, 100 over shields is generally kind of overkill. I don't think I've barely ever seen anyone lose that 100 gold shield in the duration, but this can be A tier just because it's a nice buff. This is one for the Shroud Field. Invigorating Revelation. Replenish 40% toughness over 5 seconds on leaving stealth. Also gain 20% DR for 5 seconds. Okay, first of all, check this out. 20% generic damage reduction. So, we have all this toughness damage reduction in the Zealot tree from critting and all that stuff, which we're definitely doing if we're stealthing. So, think about this. We're going to take, let's assume we're being a dumbass. So, we stealth up on an enemy, and we stab him in the back with Enduring Faith. We get a crit because it's a guaranteed crit on stealth. We stab him, and we get 50% toughness DR for the next 4 seconds. And that enemy doesn't die. Like I say, it's a crusher or something. They turn around and they smack us in the face for 100 damage. Well, I have 50% toughness DR, so I take 50 damage to my toughness. And then, because I just came out of stealth on this, I have 40% toughness DR here. So instead of taking 50 toughness damage, then I multiply that by 0.6, because this is, then I multiply it by 0.8, which is, because it's just flat damage reduction, and then I've got only 40 damage. This just adds very nicely, and this sort of, this is a 1-point pickup, because you're picking up the previous node guaranteed, and it's something that covers for the one weakness of Shroud Field, which is that there is a brief window of time, however brief it might be, usually less than 5 seconds if you're playing optimally, where you are kind of vulnerable. You know, where you can't stealth to get away, where you can't use Fury of the Faithful or choruses to like bust your way out of a situation. So you need to survive for those 5 seconds, and this is a great way of surviving 5 seconds. Also, you get to replenish 40% toughness, 8% per second. Nice replenishments over time are very, very good like that. So I'm going to give that an A tier, A+. Stalwart. Triggering Fury replenishes 50% toughness. In addition, 25 toughness DR while it's active. So this one comes with a opportunity cost. You can either go Stalwart or you can go the other side where you can keep your Blazing Piety, your Fury active by getting crits on enemies instead of just killing enemies. So this is going to have less uptime than its opposition, but the other one doesn't offer any toughness damage reduction. This first line is pretty much dead. It doesn't really do anything for us. It's not going to activate when you need it to, generally. You might get lucky, but this 25% toughness DR is very nice. However, it's up to you to weigh whether or not you have enough other toughness DR in the build. And then you might say like, I have enough already. Like this extra 25%, because multiplicative isn't really giving that. It's a diminishing return. So yeah, it's up to you, and it is a big trade-off to not take the other side of the node. And it requires a little bit of shifting build. Check my latest Zealot build if you want to see a build that uses this, I think, to some good effect. So I will give this A tier. Retributor's Stance. Replenish 2% toughness. This is a modifier for momentum, which is the bottom right keystone, by the way. Replenish 2% toughness for each spent stack of momentum. So momentum builds up to 15 stacks, and then when you hit an enemy, you cash it all in. Here's my problem with this ability, or with this specifically. When you are getting 15 stacks, you are not like in combat. Like it's because you're running between an enemy, and usually when you approach an enemy, you are getting the first hit, right? It is going to be nice because like if you aren't capped out on toughness, it'll bump you up a little bit. But it's just such a small amount of toughness. It's a maximum of 30%. And remember, this is a keystone, so you're going to use it with one of the other abilities. And the most common ability I've seen to use it with is Fury of the Faithful. So if you're running towards an ally and you're going to hit him and you're going to get this, you're probably just going to charge at him and gain 50% toughness. It's up to every 10 fucking seconds. So yeah, I don't know, like B tier, I guess. Like it's nice to get that little bit of extra bump of toughness, but it's really nothing to write home about. And then finally, I Shall Not Fall. Martyrdom grants 6.5 toughness damage reduction per missing wound. God, this is such a fucking bait. I mean, first of all, yeah, great, you get 6.5 toughness damage reduction, but guess what you're missing on your fucking build? You've exchanged all 3 of your curios for wound curios, so you lost 66% of your toughness. What are you, nuts? Like, great, you have 50% toughness damage reduction, but I guarantee that does not make up for the fact that you have 66% less base toughness. Like, and you have to be missing all those wounds, which means you are on precariously low life, my friend. And like, that is just not like, that shit might have flown in Vermintide, where like you could get temporary HP that protected your HP directly. But if you get fucking sniped, it's gonna break your toughness instantly because you don't have any gold shields, because you're probably not using Chorus. It's going to break your toughness instantly, or a burster or something like that. It can kill you instantly. It can drop you. I don't like Martyrdom. I think it's a bait. I think it's a noob trap. And I think this is not something that the ability needs. I think the ability needs more offense, not more defense. You do not want to be taking attacks when you are playing Martyrdom. You want to be dodging everything, because if you take hits, you are tempting fate to put you on the fucking ground, and no matter how many wounds you have, you die the same speed as everyone else when you are on the ground, and your allies aren't going to save you, probably because you're a Martyrdom player and you're way out of position. Because you're a Martyrdom player. Don't do it. All right, guys. All right, there we go. So that is everything. Toughness. I think we got it all, right? Wow. Who knows how long that's going to be when I fucking render it. It's going to take like 4 hours in DaVinci. So that is everything toughness. Hopefully, by guiding you through whether or not some of these are good, you've managed to get some sort of appreciation for like, what are the strong perks? What are the weak ones? What are some things I need to be steering away from, one of the ones that I want to be orienting myself towards. I think that is something that really helped me to make builds, is understand like, whoa, this node, like Iron Will, is super fucking good. I should be using that on every veteran build. And the answer is yes. Yes, you should. So there we go, everyone. I really appreciate those of you who made it this far. And I also really, really appreciate my channel members. Here they are. You can see them floating down right here. Right at the top there, we have my 2 international men of Mr. E, Diomedes, 22. You might have seen him on other people's channels. He is just such a connoisseur of fine Darktide content creator art. I am very honored that he has given me his stamp of approval. And Steve Berger, my other international man of mystery, he's new to the ranks, but I think he is falling into the fold quite nicely. And yes, we have great plans for him in the future. Yes, yes, yes. All my other mystery men are right here in front of you now. They are all equally wonderful and loveful. Loveful? What the hell does that word mean? Who knows? If you want to join the ranks, it is greatly appreciated. It is not at all mandatory. If you want to help me in the free way, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, comment, blast it out on your social medias and tell everyone, wow, I just watched this 3-hour-long video. It was so informational. And people will be like, what the fuck is a Darktide? Anyway, guys, that is it for me, Mr. E, for the day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.